Have you ever had that quiet, unsettling thought that you're capable of more, but somehow your life doesn't reflect it? That feeling when days turn into weeks and weeks into years and nothing really changes. You're busy, you're trying, but deep down, you know you're not doing what you should be doing. And the scariest part, you can't even point to one big mistake. It's just small choices, repeated every day. By the end of this video, you're going to understand a brutal truth about discipline that most people avoid their entire lives. A truth that explains why some people quietly build extraordinary lives, while others stay stuck in cycles they can't escape. And more importantly, you'll see exactly where you stand. If you care about your future, take a second to like this video and subscribe, because one day, you might wish you had heard this sooner. There's a pattern most people live without noticing. You wake up with good intentions. You tell yourself, today will be different. You'll start that project. You'll fix your habits. You'll finally take control. But then life happens. You feel tired, so you delay. You feel overwhelmed, so you distract yourself. You feel uncertain, so you wait for the right moment. And just like that, another day slips through your fingers. You tell yourself it's okay. You'll do better tomorrow. But tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. And slowly, without realizing it, you build a life based on hesitation instead of action. And this is where most people get it wrong. They think the problem is lack of motivation, but it's not. The real problem is something far more uncomfortable. Yeah, it's discipline. Discipline is not exciting. It's not glamorous. It doesn't give you that emotional high. It's quiet, repetitive, often boring. And that's exactly why most people avoid it. But here's the truth that changes everything. Your life is not built on what you intend to do. It's built on what you actually do. Consistently, not once, not when you feel inspired, but every single day. Let me tell you a story. There was a man in his early 40s. He had dreams, big ones. He wanted financial freedom. He wanted to be in better shape. He wanted to create something meaningful. Every year he made plans, new routines, new goals, new energy. But he had one habit. He only acted when he felt like it. If he was motivated, he worked hard. If he wasn't, he told himself he'd rest and come back stronger. At first, it didn't seem like a big deal, but over time, something subtle happened. His progress became inconsistent, then slow, then invisible. Years passed. One day he looked around at his life and realized something painful. He wasn't where he thought he'd be. Not because he lacked intelligence, not because he didn't have opportunities, but because he never learned to act when it was uncomfortable. And that realization, it hit harder than failure ever could. Because deep down, he knew it didn't have to be that way. But it gets deeper. There was another man. Same age, similar background, same distractions, same challenges. But he lived by a different rule. He didn't negotiate with himself. When it was time to work, he worked. When it was time to improve, he showed up. Even when he didn't feel like it. Especially when he didn't feel like it. He wasn't perfect. He failed often, but he kept going. Not because it was easy, but because quitting was no longer an option. 10 years later, their lives looked completely different. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The difference wasn't talent. It was discipline. The first truth you need to understand is this. Discipline is doing what you said you would do, long after the feeling you set it in has disappeared. And this is where most people lose, because they rely on emotion to guide action. But emotions are unstable. One day you feel strong, the next day you feel tired. If your actions depend on how you feel, your life will always be inconsistent. But it gets deeper. Every time you choose comfort over discipline, you're not just making a small decision. You're reinforcing an identity. You're telling yourself, I am the kind of person who avoids difficulty. And your brain listens. Over time, that identity becomes your default. And breaking out of it becomes harder and harder. This is the part almost nobody talks about. Discipline is not just about results. It's about who you become in the process. Because every small action you take is a vote for the person you are becoming. Skip the work. You become someone who quits. Do the work. You become someone who follows through. And eventually, that identity shapes your entire life. The most dangerous truth is this. Life does not reward potential. It rewards execution. You can have the best ideas, the biggest dreams, the strongest intentions, but if you don't act on them consistently, they mean nothing. And that's where regret is born, not from failure, but from knowing you could have done more and didn't. Have you ever felt that? That quiet voice in your mind that says, you know what you should be doing, so why aren't you doing it? If you felt that, you're not alone. But here's the question that matters. Are you going to keep ignoring it, or are you going to face it? Let me ask you something. Have you ever realized you were going in the wrong direction, but kept going anyway? Or had a moment where you thought, if I had started earlier, things would be different? Share your experience in the comments, because sometimes the first step to change is admitting the truth. Now, here's where the perspective shifts. Most people think discipline is restrictive. They think it limits freedom, but the opposite is true. This discipline creates freedom. Without discipline, you become a slave to impulse. You eat what you crave. You do what feels easy. You avoid what feels hard. And over time, those choices trap you in poor health, in financial stress, in a life you didn't intend to live. But with discipline, you gain control over your time, control over your habits, control over your future. And this is the part that changes everything. Short-term discomfort leads to long-term freedom, but short-term comfort leads to long-term regret. And you have to choose every single day, because no one is coming to save you. No one is going to suddenly give you the discipline you need. No perfect moment is coming. It's just you and your decisions. And that brings us to the emotional truth most people try to avoid. Time is passing anyway. Whether you act or not, whether you improve or not, whether you change or not, 5 years from now, you will arrive. The only question is, who will you be when you get there? This is the emotional peak most people never confront. Because it's uncomfortable, it forces you to see the gap between who you are and who you could be. And that gap, it's built daily, in the moments no one sees, in the choices no one praises, in the discipline no one applauds. So, what do you do with this? You start small, not dramatic, not extreme, consistent. You stop negotiating with yourself. When it's time to act, you act. You build simple rules. Wake up when you said you would. Do the task you planned. Finish what you started. You don't wait to feel ready. You act and let the feeling catch up later. And most importantly, you accept that it won't feel good at first. Discipline is uncomfortable. That's why it works. Because most people won't endure that discomfort, but you can. And if you do, everything changes. Not overnight, but steadily. And that steady change, it compounds. Until one day, your life looks completely different. And it all started with one decision: to stop choosing comfort and start choosing discipline. So, let's come back to the question we started with. Are you capable of more than your life currently reflects? If the answer is yes, then the problem isn't your potential, it's your execution. And the solution? It's simple. Not easy, but simple. Do it. Even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it, or accept the consequences of not doing it. Because in the end, those are the only two options. If this made you stop and think, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more honest truths about life. And if you're ready to go deeper, check out the next video on your screen, because the life you want, it's built one disciplined day at a time.